You think you're special just because you're old? This is a company, not a retirement home. That's what he shouted. Right there in front of everyone. Loud. Cruel. Heartless. My name is Mira, and that moment, that exact second, shattered something inside me that I'd been protecting for over 40 years. He slammed the report on the table like it was garbage, like I hadn't spent 3 nights getting it perfect. My fingers trembled around the file I held, but I didn't let go, not yet. I locked eyes with him. Ravi. My boss. The CEO. Young. Arrogant. Rich because his father built the empire I helped run for decades. He stared at me with that same smirk he'd been wearing since the day he took over. Like I was just an obstacle in his shiny office. Like my experience meant nothing. Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this, and also comments where you are watching from. Thanks. You heard me, he said again, stepping closer. Pack your things and get out. You're done here. The room was full. My juniors, my colleagues, even the cleaning lady stood frozen. Silent. No one said a word. No one moved. You don't get to talk to me like that, I snapped, louder than I thought I could still be. I've worked here longer than you've been alive. I helped build this company from the ground up. He chuckled. Exactly. You're old news. This company needs fresh ideas. Fast action. Not your emotional grandmother routines. That word, grandmother, wasn't just an insult. It was a mockery. I wasn't just any employee. I was the woman everyone came to for advice, for help, for history. I'd buried friends and coworkers, stayed late without overtime, missed weddings and funerals to meet deadlines. And now? I was just some old woman he could humiliate in front of the whole department. Say what you really mean, I said, stepping closer too, heat rising in my chest. You don't like that I speak up when I see wrong. You don't like that I won't nod and smile while you throw away everything your father stood for. His smirk faltered. Good. I wasn't finished. You change systems without understanding them. You fire loyal workers to hire influencers. And you throw parties with company money while single mothers in HR haven't seen a bonus in years. Murmurs started. Small ones. Tiny cracks in the silence. He noticed them too. I said you're fired, he roared. Leave. And just like that, my access card was deactivated. My inbox locked. My seat, the same one I'd sat in for 23 years, suddenly felt like a stranger's chair. No notice. No respect. No decency. Just rage. I picked up my bag slowly, heart pounding in my ears. My voice shook, but I kept it steady. I hope for your sake, Ravi, you never need the kind of loyalty you just threw away. And I walked out. No one stopped me. No one stood up for me. Not yet. But they would. Oh, they would. Because karma isn't late, just patient. And I had one thing Ravi would never have. I had stories. I had truth. I had a plan. And by the time the next morning came, he would wish to God he had never crossed me. Grandma leans back slightly, eyes gleaming not with tears, but with fire. People always think when you get older, you get softer. Slower. Weaker. But I'll tell you something my mother told me before she passed. The older the tree, the deeper the roots. And storms don't scare roots. They scare the ones with no ground to stand on. That day, I walked out with my head held high, but my heart? It was burning. Not with sadness. No. With something much stronger. Purpose. Because when someone who's never bled for something dares to throw you away like trash, you don't beg. You don't cry. You remember. You remember every name, every file, every backdoor deal. You remember every junior you helped who now depends on your silence. And most importantly, you remember what they forgot. That the company isn't just built with numbers. It's built with people. And I knew all of them. So I didn't go home that night. I didn't curl up with tea and cry in my sari. I made calls. I pulled files. I dug through my old drive, the one I never gave them access to. And as the city slept, I crafted a story they couldn't control. The truth. And when the sun rose the next morning? Let's just say, the boardroom didn't feel quite so safe for Mr. Ravi anymore. The next morning started differently. Not for Ravi, of course. He walked into the office with his usual arrogance, wearing a suit probably more expensive than my yearly salary. Laughing, loud, careless, carrying a latte someone else paid for, someone else fetched. But for everyone else in that building? The air was heavier. Colder. Like something was coming. And it was. Because I hadn't slept that night. I didn't need to. Revenge doesn't need rest, it needs fuel. And Ravi? He gave me plenty. I sent out 3 emails before sunrise. Not to gossip. Not to slander. But to open people's eyes. Real reports. Real numbers. Real proof. See, while Ravi was hosting yacht parties and throwing around buzzwords, I'd been quietly collecting everything. Every shady transaction. Every under-the-table vendor deal. Every influencer contract signed to girlfriends and cousins with fake company names. And unlike Ravi, I didn't need to bribe anyone. I had history on my side. Respect. Loyalty. And within 2 hours of hitting send, people who hadn't spoken to me in months were calling. Miraji, I never knew. Did you really keep all of this? Are these signatures real? Can you prove this in front of the board? Yes. Yes, I could. Because while Ravi inherited power, I earned my voice. And that morning, for the first time in years, it was being heard again. Back in the office, Ravi was still glowing from his little power trip. He probably thought I'd cry in silence. Maybe bake cookies for my grandchildren. Disappear. What he didn't know, what he never understood, was this. I was never disposable. I wasn't just some sweet, old woman behind a desk. I was a storm wrapped in a sari. And when I walked into the office that morning, yes, I walked in, every eye turned to me. Some widened in shock. Some lowered in guilt. And a few? A few finally smiled. Security. Ravi barked the moment he saw me. But they didn't move. Because one of the emails I'd sent? It had gone to legal. Another? The chairman. And the third? Straight to the press. Don't worry, I said calmly. I'm not staying. But I do have something to say. His face turned pale. Just then, the elevator dinged. The board was arriving. Early. Very early. And that's when Ravi knew. This wasn't an office anymore. It was a courtroom. And he was on trial. The boardroom was quiet. Too quiet. Papers shuffled. Coughs were held. Eyes darted between me and Ravi like a tennis match. Ms. Mira, the chairman said slowly. We received disturbing files this morning. About misuse of company funds. About fake partnerships. About the firing of a senior executive without board approval. I have more, I said, placing my drive gently on the table. All dated. All backed with evidence. But I'd like to say one thing before you go through them. I turned to Ravi. He wouldn't even look at me now. Yesterday, I said, I was called too old for this company. Today, I am its memory. And memory doesn't lie. One of the younger board members leaned forward. Why didn't you come to us sooner? I smiled, bitterly. Because I believed in loyalty. I believed the son of a man I respected wouldn't tear apart his legacy for attention, or profit, or Instagram likes. Silence. Pin drop silence. Except Ravi. Now suddenly, he found his voice. "This is nonsense," he said. "She's manipulating you. She's bitter because she's irrelevant. She got fired and now she's on a revenge trip." "Then check the drive," I replied simply. They did. And as the files opened, one by one, faces changed. Not because I was emotional. Not because I was angry. But because I was right. Ravi tried to spin stories. Tried to laugh it off. Tried to blame the team, the vendors, the interns. But truth? Truth doesn't need a team. Truth stands alone. And that day, I stood taller than I ever had in my life. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I let the numbers talk. And by the time the chairman finished reviewing the last file, he turned to Ravi with a face I'll never forget. "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending a full investigation. And Ms. Mira." He stood up. "We'd like to offer you your position back. At your previous designation, plus advisory authority. We'll also be publicly issuing an apology for what happened yesterday." I nodded. Then smiled. And for the first time in 40 years, I said, "No, thank you." I didn't walk out of that boardroom, I floated. Not because I was proud. Not even because I'd won. But because something inside me had shifted. For the first time in years, I realized I didn't owe this place anything anymore. Not my time. Not my silence. Not even my forgiveness. They had watched Ravi rise. They had watched him humiliate me. And most of them said nothing. Until they were forced to. So no, I wasn't staying. I'd built enough in my life. Now it was time they all learned how to build without me. As I walked through the lobby, people stood. Some clapped. Some just nodded in silence, the way people do when they realize you were right all along. But a few? A few had tears in their eyes. Like Priya. She'd been a junior analyst when I mentored her. Single mom. Broke. Hungry. I gave her my lunch one day. Just one day. And that one meal had been her only meal for 2 days straight. She never forgot. She hugged me now like a daughter hugs a mother at the airport. "Miraji," she whispered, "you showed all of us how to fight back with dignity." But Ravi? Ravi didn't leave quietly. That afternoon, before the security could even escort him out, he went live on social media. Oh yes. Suddenly he was all over Instagram, ranting, screaming. Witch hunt. Fake documents. I built this company. She's just a bitter old woman who couldn't keep up. But the thing is, when you go live, you can't control the comments. And the comments? They roasted him alive. You fired her publicly and now you're crying? Bro, she literally has screenshots. Sit down. Your dad built the company. All you built was debt. Respect your elders. She's class. You're cringe. Ravi had the mic. But I had the receipts. That night, a news anchor called me. Live TV. I hesitated, I'm not the type to go chasing cameras. But then I thought of every woman like me who's been told. You're too old. You're not relevant. You should just retire quietly. So I said yes. One interview. And the next morning? I woke up to 3 million views. The anchor asked me, "Miraji, why didn't you defend yourself when he insulted you?" And I said, because dignity doesn't shout. Dignity builds. Learns. Waits. And when it speaks, the world listens. The clip went viral. You know what people called me? The silent storm. The CEO whisperer. Nanny with a napalm mic. Some of it made me laugh. Some made me tear up. But one comment hit different. It said, My grandma used to work in an office like this. She got fired too. She died thinking she was worthless. Thank you, Mira G, for rewriting her ending. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just my story anymore. Of course, Ravi didn't give up. He tried to sue me. Claimed defamation. Data theft. Emotional distress. Imagine the audacity. The man who embarrassed me in public was now weeping about damage to reputation. But courtrooms care about evidence. And mine? Impeccable. Every receipt. Every file. Every voice note. Backed, dated, legal. The judge looked at him and said, Mr. Ravi Kapoor, maybe if you had paid half as much attention to your work as she did, we wouldn't be here. Case dismissed. Charges dropped. My name cleared. But the story didn't end there. A week later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Ravi's father. The founder of the company. He'd been watching. From retirement. From the shadows. And in that letter, he said, I gave him my surname. But I should have given you my company. You carried my values farther than my own blood. I hope you forgive me for not seeing it sooner. And inside that envelope? A check. With more zeros than I'd ever seen in my life. Labeled, honor gift. Not compensation. I didn't cash it. I donated it. To a fund for women over 50 re-entering the workforce. Because if I was going to walk away, I was going to leave the door wide open for the next one behind me. 3 weeks after the storm had passed, after the videos stopped trending and the hashtags stopped flying, he showed up. Ravi. At my doorstep. Not with a camera crew. Not with his usual smug grin or 1,000-rupee shoes. He looked hollow. Hair undone. Eyes bloodshot. Shirt wrinkled. No driver. No noise. Just him. For a second, I didn't recognize him. And for the first time since he screamed at me across that boardroom, he didn't speak first. He just stood there. Like a child waiting to be punished. I folded my arms. What are you doing here, Ravi? His lips moved, but it took a moment before any sound came. I ruined everything, he said. I don't even know where to begin. I didn't move. Didn't invite him in. He had to feel it. The same cold distance he once shoved in my direction. You began, I said, the day you told me I was a relic. He winced. I didn't mean it like that. But you did, I cut him off. You meant every word. Because you believed it. Because you were raised in a house where ambition meant stepping on people smaller than you. Where age meant useless. Where anyone who didn't shout was invisible. He looked away. I didn't know what I was doing. No, I replied softly. You knew. You just didn't care. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. He finally looked up. Eyes glistening now. You were the only one who believed in me when I joined, he whispered. I was just an insecure kid trying to live up to my father's legacy. I thought if I looked strong, loud, powerful, maybe people would take me seriously. They did, I said. Until they saw who you really were. And then his voice cracked. I have nothing now. Investors pulled out. Clients fled. Staff left. Even Dad blocked my number. I nodded slowly. That's what happens when people follow a title, not a truth. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. I came to say, I'm sorry. And I believed him. Not because his apology was perfect. But because for the first time, he didn't try to win the moment. He let it hurt. I was wrong, he said. About you. About everything. And I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. I sighed. Ravi. I don't hate you. He looked up, surprised. I pity you, I continued. Because you thought leadership was about control. About ego. About taking. When it's really about serving. Guiding. Lifting. You could have been great, I added. But you let fear make you cruel. He bowed his head. I don't know what to do next. And now, finally, I opened the door just a little wider. Start over, I said. From scratch. Learn. Listen. Apologize to those you stepped on. Not just me. He nodded. And then, he asked. I shrugged. Maybe someday, you'll build something worth leading. Not because of your last name. But because of your character. He gave a broken, sad smile. Thank you, Miraji. I shook my head. Don't thank me. Thank every woman who picked up. A year passed. And I never went back. Not because I couldn't. But because I didn't need to. Ravi's company? It folded within 6 months. He tried rebranding, rehiring, even apologized publicly, but by then, the damage was done. His name had become a cautionary tale in our industry. But mine? Mine had become a quiet anthem. Because sometimes, the loudest echo is the one that rises from respect. I started my own little consultancy. Just me and a few good people who knew what it meant to lead with heart, not ego. We didn't have a glass tower office. No valet parking. No 5-star client dinners. But we had something rarer, trust. Clients came and stayed, not for the brand. But because they felt seen. Heard. Protected. I wasn't chasing success anymore. It was coming to me. On my terms. One day, I received an email from an old intern named Deepa, the same girl Ravi used to roll his eyes at in meetings. The same girl who once spilled chai on his laptop and cried in the washroom for hours. She wrote. Ma'am, you may not remember me, but you once defended me when I made a mistake in front of the entire floor. That day changed everything. I never forgot your words, we correct in private, and we praise in public. Today, I got offered the position of creative director at a firm in London. I owe that courage to you. I wept. Not because she thanked me. But because she remembered. You see, legacies aren't built on title slides or office plaques. They're built in the moments no one records. In the kindnesses that don't go viral. In the courage it takes to speak truth even when your voice shakes. Ravi thought power came from being feared. I learned power grows when you're trusted. And while one path burns out in applause, the other shines for generations. My granddaughter now visits my office every Friday after school. She likes to sit on my lap, pretending to type. Sometimes she makes imaginary calls. Hello, she says in her high little voice. This is Boss Mira. How can I help you? I laugh every time. But inside, I pray. I pray she never forgets what she's worth. That she'll never trade softness for strength. That she'll never shrink herself to fit into a room built by men who never learned how to listen. People still ask me. Don't you regret letting Ravi go unpunished? Not suing? Not taking revenge? And I tell them the truth. Revenge is temporary. But restoration, that lasts. Ravi lost everything that day. But I found myself. I found a new path. I found my voice again. And I found the joy of rising not in spite of pain, but because of it. So if someone ever tells you you're too old, too soft, too slow, you stand taller. You speak clearer. And if they still don't listen, let them go. Because someday, they'll look around and realize the person they pushed away was the only one holding everything together.